Last time, we learned how the fossil cliffs at Joggins helped to settle a raging debate about the origins of coal. Charles Darwin thought it formed in submarine environments, Charles Lyell said terrestrial environments. Lyell and William Dawson's expeditions to Joggins gave them their answer, thanks to petrified tree stumps frozen in the rock amongst seams of coal. You could see the trees were living and growing in the same place the coal started to form, a terrestrial environment. But those tree stumps are hiding something else. Something that would be an even bigger influence on Darwin and make Joggins one of the most important fossil sites in the world. When these trees are growing here 300 million years ago, the area is a complex river system through jungle and forest-covered plains. You can actually still see traces of those rivers today as infilled channels on the beach, a little more resistant to the waves than the rock around them. And the cliffs provide a temporal record of that environment. Thanks to their diagonal slant, you can travel through time just by walking up and down the beach. North takes you further back, south is more recent. A 10 million year slice of the Carboniferous from 310 to 300 million years ago is laid out here. Within those cliffs, the complete ecosystem is preserved in the rock. 195 species have been found here, from the primary producers to detrivores to carnivores. And that's all known by the time our pals Lyell and Dawson arrived for their now famous 1851 expedition. It already makes Joggins a significant site, one of the most comprehensive cross-sections of terrestrial life in the Carboniferous. But they find something no one else had, hidden inside those fossilized trees. Most of the trees you find at Joggins are lycopods, or scale trees, the ancient ancestors of modern-day club mosses. Once they're exposed on the cliff, they typically only last about 4 years before erosion and the tides eat them away. But they're here in the first place thanks to a very specific series of events 300 million years ago. In the prime of life, those trees need to be suddenly buried up to a point in sediments, say from a flash flood. That kills the tree. And as the exposed part becomes less stable from decomposition, eventually it'll get snapped off by wind, leaving just the buried stump. The inner part of that stump rots away first, and this is the key moment in the story, when that hollowed out, buried stump becomes a trap. Small animals can fall in and not get out again. Then, if another flood covers them in more sediment layers, they'll be preserved inside that stump as both tree and critters are fossilized. And this is what Lyell and Dawson discover here, sometimes as many as 17 skeletons in a single trunk. And among them is their crown jewel. This little fella, Hylonomus lyelli, an adorable tetrapod who is also a seismic evolutionary shift. The late Carboniferous frozen in the Joggins Cliffs is an era of profound change. Up until now, terrestrial vertebrates are all amphibious, needing water to keep their skin moist and as a medium to lay eggs. Hylonomus lyelli is a great leap forward. The earliest true reptile that we've found, with a tougher skin letting her survive much better out of the water and laying hard-shelled amniotic eggs. She represents the true shift of vertebrate life from the water to the land. Critters like her are the ancestors of all dinosaurs, all modern reptiles, all mammals, us. And it's a miracle we know about her at all. More than 90% of fossils depend on the remains of animals being quickly buried in sediments. Those conditions are much more likely near or in water. So the most common fossils are of aquatic and semi-aquatic animals like amphibians. It's much rarer relatively for terrestrial animals, especially this far back in time. The fossils we do have of Hylonomus lyelli depend totally on that really unlikely series of events. Lycopod trees being partly buried, knocked over, hollowed out, and functioning as traps that are then filled with more sediments. It's only because of that process that we have a window on this miraculous transitionary animal. And that is why the Joggins Cliffs stand as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, globally recognized for their fossils. Finding these little tetrapods also sealed the deal for Darwin and the terrestrial origin of coal, and they significantly helped him build his theory of evolution, which he would publish as On the Origin of Species just 8 years after Dawson and Darwin's friend Lyell made their expedition to Joggins. And a final footnote on Lyell and Darwin. While by all accounts close friends, Lyell was no fan of the theory of evolution, being a deeply religious man himself, but he still supported and encouraged Darwin's work and the publishing of that work. In fact, by 1863, Lyell had actually come around, embracing Darwin's heretical theories as scientifically sound. And that is a miracle that I would put on par with, say, a perfectly preserved tetrapod.
If you're enjoying these videos, consider throwing me a few bucks a month on Patreon. It is the best possible thing you can do to ensure that they will keep coming.